New pictures of the prime suspect in the Brussels attacks. Police say this is the man still on the run as another suspect charged over the bombings is released. Also tonight, Pakistan's Prime Minister demands swift action on terror as more than 70 are confirmed dead in the attack in Lahore. The mother of this little girl says she's heartbroken. Her daughter died after the bouncy castle she was playing on was blown away. And Storm Katie batters southern England. Flights are cancelled and buildings damaged.
This is ITV News with Kylie Pentelow.
Good evening. He is the man police in Belgium are desperate to catch. And tonight, new moving images were released showing him alongside the two suicide bombers who detonated their devices at Brussels airport last Tuesday. The man in the hat still hasn't been identified. But another suspect, the only one so far charged in relation to the attacks, has been released due to a lack of evidence. The number killed by the bombings rose to 35 today after 4 of the injured died in hospital. From Brussels, our correspondent Emma Murphy has the latest.
The man in the hat, believed to be the surviving bomber from the Brussels airport attacks. Who he is and where he is still unknown. Today, Belgian authorities released this video of him walking through the airport with the other 2 attackers. Moments later, they blew themselves up. But when his bomb failed to detonate, he fled. Police are now appealing for those who may know their most wanted man to get in touch. As that footage was released, prosecutors confirmed that more people had died in the attacks than first thought.
Well, we know that now that 4 people died in a hospital after the attacks and that 31 people died in the crime scene. 28 of these 31 people were identified formally, and we are still trying to give the 3 families of the 3 victims left news about their relative.
Police have today charged 3 more people following days of raids. Yassine A, Mohammed B and Abu Bakr O, all accused of participating in terrorist activities. Meanwhile, a man arrested at this apartment and named as Faisal C when he was charged with terrorism offences yesterday has been released, police saying they didn't have enough evidence to hold him. Almost a week after Najim Lashrawi and Ibrahimi El-Bakrawi attacked the airport, the memorials to those they killed remain outside. There is a wish to get this place open again soon, but with additional security. Tomorrow, 800 airport staff will be asked to check in as if they were passengers in order to test the efficiency of the new systems.
Well, Emma is in Brussels tonight, where a mass has been held for those killed and injured. And Emma, a lot of concern for those people still in hospital tonight.
Indeed so, and the service here at the cathedral has just come to an end. There were prayers for the dead and also for the injured. And as this service began, we were given a briefing by the Ministry of Health as to how many people are still being treated. There are 96 patients still in hospital in connection with the blasts. Of those, 55 are in a very serious condition in intensive care. We understand that many of the injuries were blast related, but also 30 patients are being treated for burns. 2 have been moved to specialist units in France, and 1 American who was suffering from very bad burns has been now repatriated to the United States.
So, Emma, how significant for the investigation is the release today of the suspect Faisal C?
It's significant. It's also extremely embarrassing because, of course, the Belgian authorities had charged 1 person in connection with the attacks, and it was Faisal C, the man that they said the other day had been charged over participation in a terrorist group, causing terrorist murders and attempted terrorist murders. So they were really very significant charges. And then today they've had to say, well, actually, no, we've got that wrong. We do not have the evidence. And this man, who we said was the first person to be charged, has been allowed to leave and go home.
OK, Emma in Brussels, thank you. Pakistan has vowed to crack down on Islamist militants in the country after an Easter Day suicide bombing targeting Christians killed more than 70 people, 29 of them children. In Lahore today, the first of the funerals were held, while the Prime Minister gave the military new powers to arrest and interrogate suspected terrorists. Romilly Weeks has the latest.
He left us, he was so young. The family of Sahil Pervez disbelieving in their grief as the 11-year-old was buried in Lahore today. One of scores of funerals taking place in Pakistan for the victims of yesterday's bomb attack, many of them children. Among the grief, anger that the park that they were playing in at a time of heightened religious tension was not better protected. The child's uncle accuses the Punjab government of having made no security arrangements for parks or churches and asked the Prime Minister to do more to tackle terrorism. Gulshan Park had been packed with families celebrating Easter. The bomb detonated in the midst of children waiting for the bumper cars. A faction of the Pakistan Taliban has claimed that Pakistan's Christian minority was the target. Though with 70 confirmed dead and over 300 injured, there were many Muslim victims too. Wilson Chowdhury, who lost 2 members of his extended family in the bombing, told me Christians in Pakistan are increasingly under attack.
Christians are deemed to be pawns of the West or spies of the West, especially since the war on terror, which has intensified the hatred towards them. The whole idea of this is to demoralise these communities and intimidate them in such a way that they're too fearful to even step out of their own doors.
Today, Pakistan's Prime Minister visited some of the victims in hospital and promised a paramilitary crackdown on terror. We will avenge every drop of the blood of our martyred people, he promised, and no terrorist shall put a dent in our resolve. But as more families mourn their children, the attack is awful proof for Pakistan that months of military offensives against the Taliban and its offshoots haven't managed to prevent such devastating attacks. Romilly Weeks, ITV News.
The parents of a 7-year-old girl who died when a bouncy castle blew away in high winds have paid tribute to her today. They said they were heartbroken, never imagining that their beautiful angel could be taken away so suddenly. Meanwhile, the local MP has called for a ban on inflatables at public events. From Harlow, Duncan Golestani reports.
Described by her family as a happy and polite little girl, Summer Grant was on a day out at the fair when she died. The 7-year-old was playing on the bouncy castle when a strong gust of wind swept it 150 metres across the park. In a statement, Summer's mum Cara said, "Life is just truly cruel. Summer was a bright, beautiful and most loving little girl. It's so unfair that you have been taken. I'm truly heartbroken." Summer's dad Lee added, "I never thought our beautiful angel would be taken away from us or that we would outlive her." The police are still investigating exactly what happened here on Saturday and would like any witnesses to come forward. They are particularly keen to hear from anyone who may have been filming with their mobile phone at the time.
I think we need an urgent inquiry into why the castle was put up even in bad weather, whether or not it was moored properly to the ground, who decided where it should be and what precautions were being taken. This is a tragedy that we need to find out. Did everybody who should have been doing whatever they're supposed to do, did they do what they were supposed to do?
Following Summer's death, a 27-year-old man and 24-year-old woman were arrested on suspicion of manslaughter by gross negligence. They have since been released on bail. A fundraising page set up to help pay for Summer's funeral has so far raised more than £2,000. Her family say the money will help them to give her a send-off fit for a princess. Duncan Golestani, ITV News, Harlow.
British boxing's governing body has said it's satisfied with how the middleweight title fight between Nick Blackwell and Chris Eubank Jr. was refereed. Nick Blackwell remains in an induced coma in hospital 2 days after the fight, which he lost when it was stopped in the 10th round. An official at the Boxing Board of Control said there was no issue with the referee's decision not to stop it sooner. The National Union of Teachers has warned of an impending crisis in England's schools because of a lack of staff. It's blamed what it called damaging government policies for stifling freedom to teach. The NUT has previously warned that up to half of all teachers are thinking of leaving the profession. And commemorations have continued in Ireland to mark the centenary of the Easter Rising, which began on Easter Monday in 1916. Wreath-laying ceremonies took place in several towns and cities across the country. The Rising is seen as a significant stepping stone in Ireland's move towards independence. Thousands of homes lost power and dozens of flights and ferry services were disrupted today after Storm Katie swept across the south of England. There were reports too of structural damage as the strongest winds topped 100 miles an hour. But tonight, forecasters say the worst is over. Sally Lockwood reports.
Storm Katie arrived with force. Enormous waves and hurricane-force winds hitting the south coast. Gusts reaching more than 100 miles an hour quickly pushed the storm inland. Flights struggled to land at the major London airports, passengers describing attempts to touch down as terrifying. More than 100 flights from Gatwick and Heathrow were cancelled or diverted, some sent as far as Glasgow.
We had to circle around for about 20 minutes. Then we tried to land twice. Second time we almost got there, but it was as if we were going to crash. So it was really, really shaky. So we had to go back up. Then obviously we were running out of fuel. So we did an emergency landing at Manchester.
For many, the bank holiday was more than just a washout. The roof of this South London pub ripped off in the high winds. For others, the major worry was travel. Fallen trees and landslides causing chaos on the roads and railways. Some routes ground to a halt, and major crossings like the QE2 bridge in Kent closed completely. Cross-channel ferries were also heavily hit. This boat blown ashore in Essex, secured by the Coast Guard after it came perilously close to the coastal road.
Well, it was so windy, and the boat was just lifting up and coming back down. And it actually swung like it was going to come on the path. The cars were coming down in the car park.
Sounds quite frightening.
It was horrible.
Storm Katie has moved northwards, battering the east coast. The beach virtually deserted here this bank holiday at Southend. She is forecast to pass by the end of today, but in her wake she leaves behind high winds and high levels of disruption. More than 100,000 homes were without power at the peak of today's storm. And tonight, thousands are still waiting to be reconnected as Katie, the 11th named storm of the winter, leaves as dramatically as she arrived. Sally Lockwood, ITV News.
Now, fresh from their stunning victory over Germany at the weekend, England's footballers trained today ahead of their friendly against the Netherlands at Wembley tomorrow night. Liverpool midfielder James Milner will captain the side for the first time, with the team on a high after beating the world champions. But manager Roy Hodgson says the players aren't getting carried away.
I've really not got the impression that the players are sailing around at the moment with their heads in the clouds. I think that they are pretty much feeling the same way as I feel. Yeah, that was good. We enjoyed that. That's what we'd like to do. Now let's make certain we get down to continuing to work so we can produce more of those performances in the future.
Elsewhere in Wales continue their preparations for Euro 2016 with a friendly in Ukraine tonight. It'll be a last chance for manager Chris Coleman to assess his players before picking his final squad. And Northern Ireland, who have also qualified for the Summer Championships, take on Slovenia in Belfast, looking to extend a 9-match unbeaten run. And finally, one of Mexico's most active volcanoes has erupted into life again in spectacular fashion. The Popocatépetl volcano sent a column of gas and ash 2 kilometres into the air. People are being kept away from the base of the mountain, but there are no evacuations planned. That's all for now. I'll be back with the late news. That's at 11 o'clock this evening. Until then, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye for now.